You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready? Hey, it's time for another The Ready Writer show. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and today's writer guest is Marvin Williams. Let's get this show started. You're an author of a book. Was being a writer something you had in mind as a child, or was this something that happened later on in life?
No, it happened later on in life for me because like I said, I love in my book I talk about how much I love basketball and all the places it's taken me to and all the success it's given me. So I sat down one day and I started thinking about how my life had come from as a child to where I am now. And so I decided to start writing a journal just, to do some kind of soul searching. And so the journal ended up being a book. And so then, and my pastor at the time wanted me to write a book about my life. He thought my life was interesting too. So, and then I just decided, okay, I talked to one of my friends who's a publisher, and I took the journal to her. She said, "You got a real good book here." So I just turned it into a book.
Awesome. So when she told you have a real good book here, did you immediately start the publishing process?
Yeah, actually, she helped me through some of it, and then I went out and found Fulton Books, and they did most of the editing they would re-edit it, and then I would prove it, and that took probably it was probably about a 3 or 4 month process just to get the editing right and stuff like that for the book, and then choosing the book cover. So maybe about 6 months it took me to get all that stuff done.
Wow. So go back when you said your pastor told you to write a book because he felt that your life was interesting. Tell us just a little bit, um, as you can, about your life from childhood to now.
Okay. My childhood, I grew up with my mom and my dad had 19 kids total. Um, I grew up, my dad and my mom were alcoholics and abusive, and so we lived in New York till I was probably about 13 years old, and then me and my brothers and sisters and my mom we moved to North Carolina because my grandfather had died, and so my dad stayed in New York, and so we had to transition basically from living in a city where there was racism, but it was more controlled because we had the Black Panther around to look out for the black people. We had to transition from there to go to North Carolina where racism was just hardcore. And so just making that adjustment from a New York City kid to a country kid was hard for me. But because I love basketball so much, basketball became my cornerstone. So I would go crop tobacco for 12, 13 hours a day in the tobacco fields in the South, and then we would go play basketball. And so I ended up meeting guys like when I was 13, I started making friends with Kenny Gaddison, who ended up being being an NBA for like 16, 17 years. Michael Jordan, his brother Larry Jordan, Buzz Peterson. I met all those guys through basketball down in North Carolina. So basketball was like my escape. And so from there, I used basketball. I graduated. I played basketball in high school, did very well, but I didn't want to go to college because I didn't know what I was going to do, and my parents wasn't much help. They were busy drinking and fighting and carrying on with their issues. So I decided to join the military, and I used basketball. They found out I could play basketball, so the the aircraft carrier that I was on, they decided they want to have a ship's team. So when we pull in the ports, we would play against all these NBA teams and NBA players. And so that's what we did. I did that for about 4 years. And then they let me out early because one of the colleges that saw me play while we was playing in the tournament wanted me to come play for them on a scholarship. So I did. I didn't go to the college, but I ended up playing at a local community college where my son lived at and his mom, because his mom didn't want to move to Arizona. So we moved. I went back to Bremerton, played there, played 2 years at a higher level Christian college. And from there, I tried out for a bunch of teams and got cut, like the NBA, CBA. And then after that, I started coaching girls basketball and ended up coaching my son, who ends up being one of the top high school players in the country. And then he went on to North Carolina, had great success there, and became the number 2 pick in the draft after his freshman year.
So is there anything in there about, because it says an NBA dad story, is there anything in the book about you and your relationship with your son who's in the NBA?
Yeah, all of it. Like the second half of it is because I think what I'm also a member of an organization called Fathers and Men of Professional Basketball Players, and what that is a bunch of NBA dads who've been with their kids all their lives from the time they were little to the time they grew up. We decided that we wanted to form an organization, let people know that the narrative is that a lot of these black kids don't have dads, and it's not true. Chris Paul's dad is our president. I'm involved in Dwayne Wade's dad is involved in it. Carl Anthony Towns is involved in it. His dad's involved in it. So we have a lot of fathers who are going through the same thing that everybody thinks these kids don't have dads, and they do. And so we go out and do a lot of charity work. Pre-COVID, we did a lot of charity work. We still stay active in communities. Each one of us will support each other's activity that got a community. Matter of fact, we just sent about $3,000 worth of water to Houston to help those guys out through our organization. And so we formed that organization basically to let people know there are dads out there.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and continue to answer your question with Marvin, it talks about in the book how I started out coaching him because I was coaching girls basketball. Then he learned basketball by me sitting on the bench watching me coach girls. And then I started coaching him individually, and then he became really successful. He worked real hard at it and became successful with it. And I talk about the whole journey throughout his whole high school career and all that, being in his life I've been in his life his whole life.
Amazing. So going kind of back and kind of off the subject, talk about publishing your book. What are 3 things you learned about the publishing process that you weren't aware prior to publishing?
One of the 3 things I learned was marketing is important. Having very, if knowing what I'm hoping to write another book. Knowing what I know now, I will focus first on marketing the book, understanding as much as you can about marketing the book, because that's the key. Because even though you write a great book and nobody knows it's out there, it's not gonna do you no good. So that would probably be the first thing I would do. Second, be very careful about who you pick to publish your book with. If you're gonna get I love Fulton Books, but I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna probably end up doing more work than they are, but they'll still get paid. So if you can find a publisher, find somebody who's got the vested interest as well as you do, who's gonna work just as hard to publish your book and promote your book as you do. And the third thing I'll probably say, enjoy the process of writing a book. I think everybody has a book in them. I really think enjoy the process, and I think once you do those 3 things, I think everything will turn out fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Now you just said you're going to write another book. So I was going to ask, are you working on it now? Is it in your mind? Is there another book on the way? What are you thinking? Yeah,
it's in my mind right now. I've actually been talking and taking some courses with Brian Tracy, who's one of the top book authors. I've been working with him a little bit. What I want to do now is write a self-help book, telling people who want to be successful what steps they need to take, and then basically encourage them to do that. And that's what my first book is basically about. I wanted that book to inspire people so that they can say, okay, look, this guy came through all this with his family problems and his background, and he ended up being successful, so why can't I? So yeah, my second book probably gonna be a self-help book.
I like that. Well, give us 2 tips you can give someone who was in the same shoes you were, as far as not having the best home life.
Okay, I think the first tip would be, don't let your environment dictate who you become. That's the very first one. Just because you're in that environment doesn't necessarily mean that you're stuck there and that's who you're gonna become. So don't let your environment be your who you are, be the first one. And pursue your passion, whatever your dreams may be. If you want to be a rapper, a writer, pursue that. Don't let no obstacle stand in your way in terms of doing that. So pursue your dreams. Don't let nothing stop you from doing that.
Thank you so much for stopping on by The Ready Writer. I want to thank our guest Marvin Williams for joining us, and of course you, the audience, for stopping on by to watch. Thank you so much. Have a good week. Have a good day.